don't know.
Okay, so it's just preparing. So can you see at the top it says live preparing?
No.
Not at yours.
But no.
Okay, I think we're nearly there. Still saying preparing, so it'll bob up in a minute and say we're live on Facebook.
Yeah, there we are.
So good morning everyone, thanks for joining us. In some kind of miracle, we've made it bang on 11 o'clock after a busy morning for Alvanley, and I'm sure a busy morning for our guests from Man About a Dog. So we've got Rachel and Chris here today, and we're delighted to have them with us because they've become a really, really important part of Stockport, and certainly key people, I think, in Woodley, and people that have made a massive difference. And I know by looking at the faces, they're not listening to what I'm saying. They're like blank.
We are listening, Kay. We're listening.
You can't be talking about us because we're just Chris and Rachel. Well, you're not. Dead important. So, for those of you that don't know about Man About a Dog, I'm gonna read out what it says on your website. So it says, Man About a Dog is a project that is based at Spark in Stockport. We provide peer support based on the message that suicidal thoughts and attempts should not be hidden away or feared. You can speak about your thoughts and attempts with us. All Man About a Dog workers have survived a suicide attempt, and we still experience thoughts of wanting to kill ourselves. We are survivors surviving. We can identify with you if you have attempted to end your life or are thinking about doing so. Gosh, it's a sensitive subject, isn't it, for me to speak to you about, and it's really refreshing to me that you speak freely about something that is never really talked about. So thank you for making it, can I say normal?
You can.
Yeah.
That having those feelings is a normal part of some people's lives.
1 in 15 people attempt or come close to attempting at some point in their lives. 1 in 5 think about it. It is normal, it is ordinary. Simple as. And
you're the voice of that ordinary feeling. And I think, again, your ears will switch off to this because you don't like it when I say nice things about you. But you're the only organisation that do this, aren't you? You're the only people that were brave enough to stand up and say, do you know what, this is normal.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, Chris started the project after his attempt because he found that there was no support for people who'd survived a suicide attempt, and it can be a very lonely and difficult experience to continue to live when you didn't expect to still be alive, or when you don't want to be alive. When I first came to the project, which is nearly 2 years ago now, Chris was the first person who made those thoughts and feelings ordinary and showed me that it is possible to keep going and live and survive while you still have those thoughts in your head. You know, that there is a way to manage and deal with those thoughts.
So, sorry, Chris, go on.
No, I was saying, and part of that managing is being as open as you feel comfortable with being about it. If you keep your head down and worry about other people's reactions and don't ever say anything, I think our experience as individuals, certainly my experience was, I did that for 4 or 5 years and it wasn't good. Didn't do me any good.
Didn't speak up for 5 years.
Yeah, well, I had to, didn't I? Because I had obvious physical injuries and people would ask about it and they wouldn't let it lie. So in the end, I started telling the truth pretty early on, but I'd never met anyone else that I knew had attempted. So I still felt that it was just me that you know, and I was on my own, something wrong with me, and yet at the same time I knew that when, and this isn't a criticism of any other service, because I did everything I was offered. I took up every offer of help that was going, but I always felt there was a bit of a barrier in that I didn't know that the other person had attempted, so I still hadn't met someone else. And when I started meeting people through this, it was just so liberating. It just made it ordinary. You know, I can walk through the Mersey Way or Wigan County, and you see other people and we think, oh, there's Ralph, he's a survivor, nice one. He's at the football, he's having a pie, he's drinking Bovril, she's drinking Bovril, whatever. So that was the, about, you know, we've got nothing to be ashamed of, I don't think. Nothing to hide away. If you're not comfortable talking about it, that's fine. But just having that connection with one person or with two of us at the moment, it's really powerful, Kay. And it's
without a doubt. Changed my my views. I've worked in the health service since I was 18, which is a lot of years. And until I met you two, I had thoughts, and I'm a bit ashamed actually to say these out loud, that, you know, it's a cop-out, it's selfish, it's all of those things. And you actually made me realise that actually there was no choice for you. It wasn't any of those things. It was the safest thing for you to do. It was the only thing that you felt, the only option you felt you had. So you've changed my view, and I have completely different feelings about what we do as a practice when somebody is saying that they're suicidal, that we now know that you're there for them. And we invite you when we can into the practice. And I know that's a bit rubbish at the moment, that you can't come in and just have a chat with people. But you being in the waiting room is changing how we practice clinically. So you're changing the lives of people every day. So thank you.
That's what we want to do, and you know, we love doing the drop-ins at Alvanley. We absolutely love them, but at the moment we're sort of doing drop-ins at the Start Point Cafe and at Taylor's Chippy. And
wonder what the attraction there is.
Albert does like a chip, doesn't he? Albert likes
he does like a chip, yeah.
For those of you who don't know, Albert is the dog. They're named after Man About a Dog. So your kind of emblem is a cartoon, a picture of Albert.
Yeah.
So you sit kind of in a place where it's open air, so that you can have some conversations. So you've been meeting people throughout lockdown on, when you've been allowed to socially distance, haven't you?
Yeah, all the way through.
Yeah, we've needed to keep going, like, for our own mental health, and we've found a lot of times that a phone call or a text or a Zoom meeting hasn't been enough for some people, that they've needed to actually see somebody face to face. So we've been very lucky that we've had the big garden at Spark, and people have come down and seen us there. We've met people in shopping precincts, in local parks. You know, we've stood at people's gates and spoken to them while they've been stood at their front door. And we've kept going. And there's no doubt about it that during lockdown, people's mental health has really suffered, because a lot of the other face-to-face services just haven't been operating. So people who were receiving face-to-face counselling or some kind of group therapy, that's been replaced with a phone call, and people's routines and daily lives have just been thrown up in the air. And I think, to begin with, during lockdown, people's resilience, because it's one thing that survivors have in common really, is that we are resilient people, and the resilience was carrying them along. But I think the longer it went on, the harder it got for some people. Yeah. So we've been really, really pleased that we've been able to continue to provide that face-to-face support as and when it's been needed.
Yeah,
it's the link to all the stuff you do, and with Starting Point, Kay, is that there are social factors that mean people can't get out and about as well. I mean, I know that's like Nicola and that Starting Point, all the stuff about digital poverty. we've come up against literacy poverty, if you like, this in the last 3 months. So you can have all the bells and whistles, little computers, devices, if you like, but if someone struggles with reading and writing, throws that out of the water a little bit. And social factors, single women on their own with 3 kids, they can't pop out 3 kids under the age. It doesn't happen. Or people whose anxiety is so defining that they can't get out their front door or get on the bus, or so, you know, we've not done it out of bravado about sticking 2 fingers up to authority. We've done it because people have wanted us to go and see them, and it's a reminder that no matter what the benefits of the move to digital stuff, sometimes actually being in the same room or through a wall with another human, that's what it's a human thing.
So just going back to that thing about kind of well-being, Dr. Idu, our senior partner here, will say that between we can only deal with between 10 and 20% of somebody's health. The 80% is about their well-being. It's about everything else that goes on. So, but often patients come to us and expect us to be able to fix the 100%. So having and it probably sounds a bit formal to say we've got a referral pathway to you, because we haven't. We will tell people, ring Rachel and Chris and they will talk to you anytime. They leave them a message, send them a text. And that's completely right, isn't it? If somebody messages you when we're shut on a Sunday, or when the only other option is turning up at A&E, you will talk to them.
And you know, the phone's on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We both have quite sort of wonky sleep patterns, really. So sometimes we're awake late or we're awake early. I mean, we're not an emergency service, but as soon as we receive a text or a message on Messenger or a voicemail or whatever it might be, we'll always reply as quickly as we can.
And I'm guessing that is a confidential call, but if you were concerned about somebody, would you intervene? Would you phone 999?
Definitely. We have done as well.
We have done as well. I mean, that there are limitations on that, because certainly on initial contacts, one of the things we do or don't do is not ask really any questions. So you don't have to spend 15 minutes giving us your date of birth, your address, your postcode. You know, it's about the human contact first. So we have intervened quite directly, actually, on a couple of times, and we would do, because we want to help people keep in touch with a bit of them that wants to keep living. And maybe even, I mean, the number of times we've directly intervened as an emergency service has been pretty small. But I wonder if that is not because we've actually provided the step before that, which is actually, no, you're not crackers for thinking and feeling that. We've had a big increase in people feeling like killing themselves, topping themselves, because of a pet dying over lockdown. That's been, if we had to rank the most severe, what hasn't been the CV-19 itself, it hasn't been the adjusting to lockdown and now the fear of adjusting to things going back to the way that they were before. It's been things like the death of a loved pet or the illness of a loved pet. That's a real, but it makes perfect sense.
Of course it does.
That pet's looked after you for 3 months and all the time before that, and suddenly it's not there.
Yeah, it's your purpose, isn't it? In some cases, it's a purpose.
For a lot of people, it is. But nearly everyone will say to us, "Oh, you'll think I'm daft for grieving for my cat, dog, guinea pig, rabbit, whatever." And we, no,
not at all.
But that, sorry.
What we find with practically everybody, I think, that comes to see us is that there's some kind of past trauma that has occurred within the person's life, whether it's historic abuse, domestic violence, it might be the loss of a parent, the loss of a child. And every time you experience a new trauma in your life after that, it brings back a lot of the feelings and emotions and the ways of behaving and thinking and responding that you might have felt at the time of your initial trauma. So it could be anything. And the death of a pet is, you know, we'd never say to anybody that what they were thinking and feeling was wrong or daft or stupid, or, you know, try and belittle or dismiss anything that people were saying, because it's real for them, and what they're thinking and feeling is real. And it's not, and therefore it's not wrong.
Yeah.
It's their response. But by contacting us, we always say that there is still a little bit of them that wants to stay alive. You know, just by making that phone call and getting in touch, shows to us, and we will show it to the person, that there is still a bit of them that wants to keep going. So the battle between living and dying in their head is not completely over. And we try and get them to identify and nurture and encourage the bit that still wants to keep going, and to get that bit stronger, and you know, perhaps more purposeful than what it is at the point of initial contact.
And they can then follow, they can keep in touch, so we can reaffirm that on a regular basis, because we both know we forget it, we lose sight of it. You know, it only takes one thing to go wrong at the beginning of the day.
We're just losing your there you go.
Yeah. I would have thought that was a bonus.
No, not at all, not at all.
But, you know, we can remind people about that. We have to remind ourselves about it, remind each other, and it's that kick up the backside sometimes in a gentle way, and sometimes a straightforward sort of way.
Yeah.
You know, we never criticise or judge, I don't think, and I hope not, anything, any experience someone's had that's led to it, even if, you know, at the back of our heads, you know, that is crap, that really is crap, but we wouldn't, that's only that automatic response in a sense, but we won't indulge things, because we know that when we set off in that path of negative thinking, that it's a pretty quick spiral from, I wish I hadn't put these shoes on this morning because I don't like the way it makes me look, to, well, that's it, I'm just completely rubbish, I may as well be dead. That's really short, you know.
When you say really short, are we talking hours?
Can't be minutes.
Really?
Yeah, it can be.
It's interesting for someone who hasn't had those thoughts. So we might say to you as a medical profession, I'm not talking about Alvanley, but as a kind of nation, we might say, well, why don't you make a plan? Why don't you think about learning a new hobby or getting some exercise or any of those things? Which is what you might see on some forums, isn't it? Well, concentrate on something else. By what you're saying, it's just all encompassing, and to get 5 minutes is an achievement. So we're not talking about learning to knit, we're talking about 5 minutes.
All those things, all those longer term, I don't even like using the phrase longer term now, all those things, those pleasurable things, those things you can enjoy, things that you've probably done in the past and have stopped doing because you feel so bad about yourself, like, I'm not good, why am I listening to music? Everything I like's rubbish, why am I, you know, any of those things that we've sacked off because of our view of ourselves, it can be very quick, okay? But those long-term things, those enjoyable things, are part of it. So we have a bit of I had a bit of a debate with someone on Twitter the other night, because they were asking us about, you know, why you just on about surviving and not thriving, which is like become one of those cliched aphorisms in my head that I just want to slap people around the ear for coming out with. But my sort of response was along the lines of, well, yeah, you can't thrive if you're not surviving. Learn to survive first. Get over those things when, you know, so you can pull yourself up and think, right, okay, I did put the wrong shoes on this morning, but actually, do you know what? No one else is going to notice, and it doesn't matter anyway. But those are the hard bits to get ingrained as a habit. But all those positive things.
I think what we tell survivors is that you can get your life back on your own terms, so you can choose which bits of yourself you want to carry on enjoying. So for example, you know, we see people who really struggle a lot with thoughts of wanting to top themselves, but they are amazing artists, or their craft work and card making is fantastic, or you know, they have such green fingers that they can make anything grow, or they have like 5 dogs and 4 cats that they manage to look after and care for, or
And the children.
you know, they go to concerts, they are fantastic cooks and bakers, and it's those things that people still can enjoy and do, along with having that battle in your head. But those are the things that we encourage people to grow and develop, but doing it on their own terms.
Brilliant.
So some of the things you've said, I hope give family members and loved ones a bit of hope and a bit of reassurance that you're there. So that if their family member is feeling that, or if they're feeling that, there's something that can run alongside medicine. That there's a place that they can go and they can talk, and under normal circumstances that's over a bovril at the football as well, isn't it? So you invite people to meet you in the stand where you are at Stockport County.
Yeah.
If I was a parent, or my partner had, I'll use your phrase actually, had topped themselves, and I think it's probably important that I do use your phrases. Could they come to you as well?
We've had that offers. I think that right. That sounds service based, doesn't it? Making an offer. We've always said from the off that anyone affected by someone attempting can come and talk to us, because it's there. If they find they couldn't get anything from us, that's fine. But they know we're there. If they think of the question 9 months later, well, why never ask them that? So yeah, family member, anyone, workmates. The offer's been there. My family had no support. Rachel's family had no support. I've met Rachel's parents, I think mum and dad twice, and Rachel's dad 3 times. My daughter's going to see the daughters of someone else who's attempted, because neither of them have individually met someone else they know whose parents attempted. And there's been an increase just in the last few weeks in the number of parents contacting us about their children who've attempted. And that's something that we're more than happy to do.
Because they can often ask us questions that they wouldn't be able to ask their child, partner, friend, whatever, and we can tell them things about our attempts and our surviving, you know, that their loved one might not be able to articulate to them.
So if I'm an organisation in Stockport, regardless of whether it's health or otherwise, you'd go to them as an organisation and talk to their team, their staff,
we'd love to.
To be able to do, don't know whether education's the right word, but a truth of what it's like. It's telling that truth, isn't it?
It's hard to know what to call it, isn't it? Because we, you know, we're going to, it's like a presentation, but I've started calling it in my head, and this is probably going to cause a Twitter storm again. It's like a bit of a suicide panto, really, because we are a bit of a double act now. We've done it that many times, but we've really missed doing that the last 3 months. You know, if you think we've gone from that being down in Dorset with Jane and all the people down at Blackmore Vale, which is the hardest 3 days I think either of us have ever had in many ways, but actually it was just magical.
So that was that's Blackmore Vale practice, and they'd seen your work with us and your work in Woodley, and they offered you the opportunity to go down there to see, I think, if it was something that they ought to offer in their area as well.
They were looking to set something similar up. So we went down there for a few days, but that was when was that? End of January, wasn't it? But we've spoken to all kinds of different organisations, and there's a few things that we had planned that we haven't been able to do because of lockdown. But we were going to speak to a big group of health professionals in the east of England who'd kind of got hold of what we were doing and were interested to find out. We were going to speak to the National Association of Adult Survivors of Abuse. Is that what it's called? Children? No.
Survive.
Yeah. We're going to speak to them, but we've not been able to do that. But we've done work with Talk, Listen, Change. We've spoken to groups of GPs. We've done what else have we done? Mine's gone blank.
We talk at the opening of a fridge, okay, and you know we would.
You did something at home in Manchester, didn't
Yeah,
you?
we did.
That was a big thing. That was on stage and everything, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was. Look, we were talking about this the other day. We were both looking at each other thinking, I don't know if we could do that again now. But it was
an after-show panel discussion about suicide and mental health after the performance of an adaptation of Reasons to Stay Alive by Matt Haig, the book. So we went to the play, and then we were on the stage with the cast and other people who'd been invited to.
And who took over, Rachel?
Yeah, we did kind of take over a bit, but give us an opportunity to speak and we don't shut up, that's the thing.
But you know, from that day, we met at the time a young woman who was 17, and she's still seeing us and still wants to see us. She just turned 18, so you know, we do miss that. I don't know what to call it. It's just telling people a little bit about what it's like, our experience of the build up to an attempt and learning to survive. And I worry sometimes that people think we're negative about it, that it's just this constant, we talk about that constant battle in our heads, and that's true, that's the reality of it. But actually, you know, we laughed a lot. You saw us in Taylor's a couple of Thursdays ago with 4 or 5 other survivors there who hadn't planned to meet another survivor that day. And if we'd said, look, there'll be 6 other people there, are you going to come down? They'd have sworn at me and told me to go away. And we were having a hoot. We were laughing our socks off.
And actually what we were laughing about was all the stuff that's come on social media recently about our use of the phrase topping yourself. So, you know, the survivors were all laughing and thinking, well, you know, why would anyone take offence at that? It's our language, it's what we choose to use, it's how we describe what happened to us. So we kind of did a little question thing and said, well, if you don't use the phrase topping yourself, what would you say? So someone goes, oh, I say I'm checking out.
That's my favourite one.
Somebody else is like, oh no, I wouldn't use that. I'd say I'm going. And yeah, so we were all like laughing about, you know, the different ways that we use to describe what happened to us, and it's not belittling it or, you know, being flippant or dismissive or taking away the impact and the importance of what we did and why we did it. But for us, it makes it ordinary.
And I think that was it was on the back of that that I thought it's really important that we have this forum where we can talk about that topping yourself phrase. And I do struggle to say it because I've not been there, so it's not kind of my words, it's survivors' words. But people were taking real offence, weren't they, on social media?
They were
being flippant, and
it was a new experience for us because it was 2 years and no one's pulled it up before. And I don't mind being pulled up. It's part of what, you know, we're completely open. But then I'm naive about social media. And I didn't realise that people feel free to exercise their right to free speech, but then throw the rattle out the pram when you actually ask them to explain it, or just do the Zoom or Twitter equivalent of la la la, can't hear you. And I mean, I can tell you that it was a phrase that I've used from the off since I realised I was a survivor. It was just a phrase that was in my head. I mean, for sort of 2.5 months in hospital, I never had to really say it out loud because the only people I saw apart from my family were nurses, doctors, people who knew what I'd done. That's why I was on the burns unit. So no one really ever asked about how I'd done it, because they all knew.
Yeah.
And there was this one, it came about out loud, and almost a more conscious decision to use the phrase was because I had my first skin graft on a Friday, which meant that when the doctors came round to take the dressings off and have a look at the size back of my left hand, it was and it's the misnomer of the century, isn't it? Junior doctors. I prefer to say the doctors that actually do all the blinking work out of 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, came round and they took the dressing, and they were lovely, kind, confident removing the dressing, so there was none of that faffing about so it hurt more. It was just like whipped off. It was great. And they were chatting away, and then one of them, and I was a bit spiteful, I think. She looked at the wound, and honestly, it was like a child's drawing of Frankenstein's monster. It was like multicoloured, bits of skin hanging off, bits of sutures sticking out the side. It wasn't great, and the doctor said, "Oh, it's beautiful." And I was like, you've been good up till now, but that really isn't, it's not. And I got my backside in my hand a bit then, Kay, like, as everyone does sometimes. And they then looked at my file and said, "Oh, how did you get the burns?" And I just looked them straight in the eye and just said straight out loud, "I tried to kill myself," a bit bluntly like that. And the look on their faces was like horror. Not because of what I'd done, it was because I think the words that I'd used. So after that, I realised that I could say that I'd attempted to commit suicide or shuffle off the mortal coil, or what was the one that was suggested? End your own life. Well, that makes it sound a bit like a Victorian melodrama, and I should have an aspidistra and a pot behind me. My phrase was top myself, and I can do that, putting my hands up, lopside my head, and give you a bit of a grin and go, "Tried to top myself." No apology in it. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not embarrassed. And I think it's a gentle way of saying it, and it doesn't make a drama out of it, because none of us want a drama about what we did.
No.
And I wish people would have that discussion with us, because nothing changes for the better if all people do is stand around, be offended. It just stays the same, and we don't want that. We want other survivors. 144,000 people a year. 12,000 at least a month attempt and survive. Most, and that's just the numbers that come to the attention of a practice like yourself, the GP, or more likely the police, paramedics. You can't. We don't want to speak for anybody, but the stigma about attempting to top yourself, to kill yourself, to end your own life is so powerful that people don't talk about it. We're still meeting people who we are the only people they've told about it.
And their attempt might have been like 10 years ago, and they've carried it round with them, and it's not left their head. But all we want to do really is to say to people that, if we can survive and keep going, anybody can. And you're not on your own with it. And that if you get in touch with us, you will always speak to another survivor. And it's the peer support and knowing that what we're thinking and feeling isn't unique to us, that our ways of looking at ourselves and the things that have happened to us isn't unique to us, that that you're not on your own with the way that you think and feel, and that you can talk openly about your attempt with us. We're not going to flinch, we're not going to judge, we're not going to medicalise it in any way. We're just going to treat it as being normal and ordinary.
One of the big things, Kay, was this, when we started, and it's been a real part of it, and I think it's part we've forgotten to stress a bit recently as well, is that the whole debate about suicide prevention and reducing suicides, reducing the number of verdicts or the situations that end up in a coroner's court, people most likely to top themselves are people who've already attempted. Right? That's by, is it 30 times more likely to die than people who haven't previously attempted. And why not speak to us about how things could be made better. What not us at the moment, because we put our head above the parapet in a sense, but why not speak to the other 12,000 people each month? What could have been done differently? How could services have responded differently? You know, what would have helped? What didn't? I mean, it's not a pop at any of the services, because while it isn't, I don't like the phrase again, but peer support, we're not a service user organisation, because a lot of the people we see don't use any services. They've either been through them and come out the end, or have never been in them in the first place. But why not speak to the people that have been there, attempted and survived?
It's really,
You know,
it's really important. So we're finding now with our group consultations that have a group of people who've got the same condition is really powerful, and that is absolutely the same for any condition or anything that people are going through. So if we've only managed a half-hour kind of slot of what you're all about, if people want to go and find out more about you, you're on Twitter, you're on Facebook, you've got your own website, or is it part of Spark?
Yeah, we've got our own website,
So they just search Man About a Dog, and it's a blue and yellow picture of Albert, and we'll put a link of that on our Facebook page.
That's lovely.
So, do you know your phone number off by heart?
I think I do actually. 07706 115 471.
Between us, we did know it.
So let's say that's your number.
No, 07706 115 471.
That's it.
And I know there's just the two of you, but if people send you a message or leave you a voicemail, one of you will get back to them, what, in a couple of days?
No, well before that.
Less than that. Yeah.
I don't, unless we miss something, like miss a call. If someone's rung and it's an unknown number, sometimes I can neglect it or don't pick it up. Really, I think the longest anyone's waited is probably something like whatever length of time I've slept that night. So 6 hours might be the longest, or
half a day, maybe.
Half a day, maybe.
Okay. Which is incredible when there's just two of you. So we know you've got funding for at least another 12 months, don't we?
Yeah.
So we know you're going to be definitely part of Woodley and Stockport, and by the sound of it, anywhere else that'll have you.
Yeah, very much so. Because the idea would be, you only need 2 people. You can ditch the dog, because he's frankly, he's useless. You can ditch the dog. You've got a better pet. It just takes a couple of people in one town to do what we do. Do it differently. There's no model to practice. If people feel differently, like people ask us about groups, Kay. Now, we've never organised one, partly because of simply no one's ever really asked for one.
Yeah.
And we would say that we didn't have the skills to run a group.
But do you know, 2 weeks ago when I met you in Taylor's Chippy, you had a group.
That's the drawback. It was a group,
It happened spontaneously and organically. It wasn't something that was facilitated with a leader and a set of questions and exercises for people to do. That's not how we do it.
And we wouldn't want
to do it like that.
But you were a group of people with a shared experience who were at a safe distance, and actually when I turned up, you were having a right laugh.
We were.
It was, looking back, that was one of the most, it was just, I loved looking back, welling up now, even thinking of it. You know, the people around that table were really struggling as well. I didn't catch everyone on a good day. It wasn't like, you know, the sun's out, let's go, the chippy's open, let's go and sit in there. The people in there around that table who were really finding things tough, having a tough time, and they were laughing. And some people, 2 people around there, we only met for the first time that day.
So you can do anything then.
But we need people like yourself and Nicola and the Woodley community to recognise and value and understand what we do and why we do it and how we do it. And we wouldn't, you know, we've managed to set things up as far as we can in Woodley, partly because of our own persistence and consistency in coming down and doing the drop-ins and speaking to anyone who'll give us 30 seconds of the time. But you know, we're so grateful for the people who've welcomed us, taken us on board, championed what we're doing, given us opportunities that we wouldn't have had otherwise. You know, we're so grateful, you know, to all of you.
And that commitment's really there. That's, you know, it's, at the moment it's going to be every Thursday, but we've got access to the room above Taylor's, so we can meet people there or outside Starting Point. Or beginning of lockdown, we met someone on a really cold Saturday, bitterly cold Saturday afternoon on a bench in the precinct.
Yeah.
So, you know, that commitment's there because it's shared. That's what's been magical about working with yourselves and Rod and the Viaduct people and Starting Point. So Nicola and Hayley and the people with all the staff up there, apart from the ones that threw me and Bert out of the cafe. I had to get that reminder.
Yeah, no dogs allowed in Starting Point until they met Albert, was there?
Well, the first time we were escorted off the premises, but it's a mutual thing because we want to be part of. You know, we're saying that what we've thought and felt and what thousands and thousands of other people just in Stockport think and feel is ordinary. So people at the gardening group up at the allotment will be thinking about it. You know, people in the racing pigeon fraternity will be thinking about it. The Crown Green Bowls.
Yeah.
You know, my daughter's a nursery nurse, and I know for a fact that a lot of her colleagues, so young women, aged sort of 20, 21, 22, 23, are self-harming, cutting, and having really strong thoughts because of pre-existing trauma. It's that ordinary. Everyone that works in the shops in the precinct, I see you look at the clock, don't ever think you can speak to a survivor and they won't know that you just looked at a clock. Nice try, Kate. Sorry, you have to get to bed earlier than that.
I'm rubbish, aren't I?
Is that your cue to shut up?
I'm not saying anything. I just want to talk to us now. Yeah. I'm going to go put my head on a railway line.
Oi! We can't end it on that kind of comment.
No, that was flippant, so I withdraw. No, but it's you know, it's magical with Woodley. It's worked. It's just fantastic, and that with Dan going up there as well. We know Dan from his previous. I hadn't realised quite how young he was until yesterday, which is a bit frightening.
So we'll make sure that other areas in Stockport, other areas, whoever gets to listen to this, and I'm sure between us we'll tweet it and share it on Facebook and make it available so that other people understand what you need to set up something like this in their area, and you're there to help them to do that if they just need a conversation about setting up.
Exactly.
And that'll be,
exactly.
And what we'd love is the example before, Kay, about family members. They could do something themselves and not have to go, because, you know, the experience of families we've met with organisations like SOBS and Stockport Carers, so they haven't been particularly available for them, or so why not? It just needs a couple of parents or a couple of siblings or workmates or neighbours. You do it yourself. Yeah. Set it up.
I think what you have that perhaps other organisations don't, other than the lived experience, is honesty. That you're absolutely honest, that feeling is ordinary and we could all feel it at some point in our lives.
We have to be, we have to be.
So I am looking at the clock properly now, Chris.
All right, I'm looking at the floor now, Kate.
I said we were only going to talk for half an hour, so we've done a bit better than that, 45 minutes nearly. There will be some questions, I'm sure. So will you go onto our Facebook page and answer any of the questions that come in?
Yeah, of course we will.
Is that all right? Now, and we'll make sure we share all your details and continue to support us. You've changed my life, so thank you for everything you've done for me and for the practice and for Woodley.
Thank you.
And everyone at Alton,
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
It's been really important and really enjoyable.
Yeah.
And what haven't I done so far, Kate?
Eh?
What haven't I done?
I cried. Or did you have a
No.
letter?
Yeah, I did. I've had a bit of a thing. So what do I usually do? Nice
Your
one.
eyes got
I
small.
know.
Vanity
Sorry
filter.
when you referred to your bottom that we might get a
I
word there.
consciously, I very nearly said ask her, yeah. Oh dear.
Please. Right, on that note, on your bottom, I love you and leave you. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you so
Do
much.
do the
Bye.
do wave.
Bye.
Don't do it.